hope you're all well. So I'm Priya and I've been with Carers UK on the helpline for just over a year now. And today I'm going to be talking about carers assessments, tips and guidance for carers, and how you can best prepare for your assessment. So I'll just share my screen. Okay, so there are different types of carers. There's an adult carer, there's a young carer and a parent carer. So I'll just go through each of those. So firstly, a carer is someone who provides or intends to provide care for another adult. And as an adult who is a carer, you're entitled, that definition of you is in the Care Act under section 10.3. So this applies to people who live in England. In Wales, there is also a definition in that act as well. It's a different act that they use, which is the Social Services and Wellbeing Wales Act. And that says that a carer is someone who provides or intends to provide care for an adult or a disabled child. There are also young carers, and that's somebody who's under the age of 18 who provides or intends to provide care for another person. That applies to people who live in England. And a parent carer also who applies in England is someone who's aged 18 or over who provides or intends to provide care for a disabled child or the person who has parental responsibility. So the definitions for a young carer and parent carer are in the Children Act 1989. And I'll just put the sections here just in case you ever need to reference it when you write to councils. So if you're new to caring, it is always advisable to register as a carer with your GP surgery. And this is just purely because they can signpost you to useful information and support. They could maybe help in providing appointments at convenient times for you. And just generally the practice staff will be aware of your caring role and might be able to, give you vital information that you might need to know under the NHS. And so some local carer groups and organisations also have carer card schemes which you can sign up with. So if you're new to caring, that's also something that is worth doing. And you can search for local carer groups and organisations. If you click on that link here, I believe this presentation will be shared with you afterwards, so you can just get the link from the presentation, or it is also, this is from our website as well on the Get Support page. So as a carer, you are legally entitled to a carer's assessment, and that right of yours is under section 10 of the Care Act. The purpose of this assessment is that it just takes into account your caring role, what your responsibilities are, and just really what support you need to be able to continue in your role as a carer. Because most carers do find it easier to continue if they are supported and if they have the right support, which is, tailored to their needs, because every carer is different. So any carer who appears to have needs for support can have an assessment by their local council, and you are entitled to this assessment regardless of the amount or the type of care that you provide, what your financial situation is, or your level of need for support. So the assessment should take into account like a holistic view of what your needs are as carers. And so you shouldn't be penalised if you have, if you have over a certain amount of money, or if you provide a little bit of care compared to if you provide a lot of care. It doesn't matter, you're still entitled to this assessment. So during the assessment, the social worker or the assessor who's allocated to your case will make contact with you, and they will arrange the assessment with you. When they do this, it is really important that they go through a number of outcomes. They have to explore each of the ones that I'm about to go through with you. And these are listed in the Care and Support Eligibility Criteria Regulations 2015. And this applies to carers who live in England. And so not all of them will apply to you, but they still have to be all of them have to be discussed. So if you're a carer and you carry out any caring responsibilities for a child, then they have to explore that with you, and you can explain in your own words what that is. If you provide care to other people, so for example, if you're providing care for your husband and you also provide care for one of your parents, then that is something that has to be explored, because you're providing care for two people. Maintaining a habitable home environment. So this just takes into account, do you have enough time to, do your house duties, cleaning, hoovering, that sort of thing? Do you have enough time to do that, or do you need help to do that? Because with caring, sometimes it's quite, it's quite an intense task, and so you're sometimes doing it 24/7. Do you need help in maintaining your home? The other outcome is managing and maintaining nutrition. So this includes, do you have time to go to the supermarket, to do food shopping? Do you have time to cook meals? That sort of thing. Cultural foods, do you have time to go to the shops to get that? Because sometimes that's not always available in your local supermarket like Tesco. Do you have to go somewhere else to get those things? So all of those matters have to be explored, and you have to explain that to the social worker. Developing and maintaining family or other personal relationships. So is your caring role preventing you from being able to maintain your family relationships? It could be in your immediate home or outside your home, or is it preventing you from being able to develop new relationships? And so that has to be explored as well. And the other outcome is engaging in work, training, educational volunteering. And this includes whether you're doing it at the moment or if it's something that you want to take part in. A lot of carers that I speak to have had to reduce their hours at work, or they've had to stop work to provide care 24/7. And you don't have to take that choice. It is your choice if you want to do it, but you shouldn't be forced into that position if you do want to work, and if you do want to train and educate yourself, or if you want to volunteer. These are outcomes that are important to you, and so you should be supported in being able to achieve that. Making use of necessary facilities or services in the community. So this means, are you able to access services for yourself, like going to the dentist, going to the doctor, and those necessary services? Do you have time to do that, or are you neglecting that because you're too consumed in your caring role because you don't have support? Engaging in recreational activities. This means sort of taking part in hobbies. Do you have time to go to that yoga class, or to go for that run, or to go to the gym? With restrictions now opening, these things are now, they're back in place. So do you have time to do those things, or have you not been able to do that for a long time? So that should also be taken into account. So with each of these outcomes, the social worker will go through it with you, and you'll have the opportunity to explain it in your own words. So it's always useful. So before you ask for your assessment, before you have your date set for your assessment, just prepare answers for each of these, so that when the social worker comes and asks all these questions, you'll be ready to go through all of them. And because sometimes it's quite overwhelming when you're asked these questions, because you don't have that time to prepare your answers, because you might have a lot to say. And so this way you can just prepare ahead of that. So this is just an example case. So Gita is a carer for her father who has dementia. She provides care in the absence of carers from the agency. So her father has a care plan and a care agreement with the care agency. So Geeta also works and has a family of her own, but she noticed that she is getting more tired and is not spending enough time with her family. So she asked her council for a carer's assessment because she needs support with the following outcomes, which we've just gone through, which is engaging in work and developing and maintaining family relationships. So the local authority come and assess her, and they increase the support that her father currently receives from the care agency so that she can work and focus on her family. So this is an example. You can obviously tailor it to your own situation, and you can, if you can write to the council and say that you want a carer's assessment because you need help in the following outcomes, and you can list them out, and then that should hopefully get them to arrange that assessment for you. You don't have to do that. You can just ask for the assessment, but it's up to you. You've got that option. So in Wales, it's under a different legislation. So it's under Section 24 of the Social Services and Wellbeing Wales Act. And that says that local authorities have to assess carers who have needs for support, or if they may do in the future. And so in this assessment, they have to take into account the similar things as with people who live in England, whether the carer works or wishes to work, or whether the carer is in education or wants to do that, or is in any training or leisure activity. If the carer is a child, then they have to take into account, is it actually appropriate for the child to provide care, and the development needs for the child as well, and also education should be taken into account. So to prepare for the assessment, it's important to just make a brief note of what your caring roles are, and to just think of the following. So what time do you start providing care? Do you provide care 24/7? And when I say what time do you start providing care, I mean be as honest as possible. If you start providing care at 6 a.m, then say that to the social worker. If you're round the clock carer, you wake up during the night, you're pretty much 24/7, then say that. You're going to have to explain to them what exactly do you do, your tasks and duties, how long does each task take you, like washing, dressing, include the time that it takes to support your loved one, what time does it take to do the transfer, like how long does it take you to get the person, if the person is bedbound, how long does it take you to get them up, to transfer them to the bathroom or to transfer them to the chair, how long does that take you? Time it so that you can be as precise as possible. And it's also important that you say whether you have friends or family that can help out in an emergency, or can they help out at all. You can say to them, when was the last time you actually had a break? Breaks are very important for carers. That respite is so important to just sort of take a step back and refresh, and come back again and do your job. It's really important to take breaks, carers. Does any caring task involve any heavy lifting? Like, are you having to lift the person you're providing care for in and out of the bath, for example? Is that having an effect on your back? These sort of things you want to have a think about. Do you have any health needs yourself? If you do, then you can always ask your GP to write a supporting letter. Are you in employment, education, or volunteering? Are those things having an impact on your caring role? And that could be when you're thinking about your employment, education, or volunteering, you want to think about, are you exhausted at work because you're providing care all the time, or are your grades slipping, or are you not able to proceed? Because some carers who are in education have sometimes had to defer the year, or to defer exams. So is that happening to you? Do you want to take part in volunteering, but you don't have the time? Then these sort of things you want to have a think about. So to request a carer's assessment, you have to speak with your local authority. It's the adult social care team. If you're an adult, if you're requesting a carer's assessment for a young carer who's under the age of 18, then you will need to speak with children's services. So to search for your local authority, you can just use this link here. All you need to do is type in your postcode and it will show you who your council is, and then you can have the contact details and give them a ring. You're most likely to get through to the switchboard, but if you just ask to be transferred to either adult social care or children's services, then they can do that for you. If possible, make your request in writing. If you're not able to do this, then call the council and request this, but ask them that they send you a confirmation email of your request, so that you just have a record. And it's reasonable to allow the council some time to arrange the assessment, because they have to speak with they have to allocate somebody to you, and they have to do all the necessary checks and the preparation. So 2 weeks is reasonable time. Any longer than this, then request an update by phone or email. If you've been waiting 2 months, then I would suggest that you make a complaint and use a complaints process. And that's why I said make your request in writing, because then you've got a record of your attempts to try and get the assessment done. And each time you call for an update, so like if you do request an update, then just make a brief note of who you spoke to, the day and date that you made that call, just so that you've got a record. So all carers should also have a think about contingency plans, and this is where you plan for emergencies. And this is because as carers, you just need that reassurance that if an emergency does happen, that there is support in place for the people that you care for. And if help is urgently needed, then, I mean, some carers can contact family or friends to help them, but this isn't always possible, because some families don't have, family or friends local to them that can just drive or walk over in an emergency. So this is why you want to create an emergency plan, and Carers UK can guide you through this. We've got an online tool, which is this link here, and that will take you through step by step how to create an emergency plan. And there's also some information here on how you can create a plan. It's got all really useful information and some top tips on how to create that plan for you. You can also get in touch with your local authority to help you with a contingency plan at the same time that you're asking for the carers assessment. And so that's something that you should all be thinking about. So just a bit more on contingency plans. You want to have quite a few important details ready. So the name, address and contact details of the person that you provide care for. If there is anybody that you want to be contacted in the emergency, like family, friends, or any professionals involved, then that's also important. If you have a solicitor, you want to have those details ready. If there's anyone professional involved, you just want to make sure that they're kept in the loop as well. Details of any medication and where it may be stored. Details of the GP, any care and support they receive, like from the local authority or NHS trust. If they're receiving care from an NHS trust, it might be from the clinical commissioning group if they receive NHS continuing healthcare. And also what's important is any allergies that they have, and that's also important. But that link gives you a full list of all the things that you need to have a think about. These are just some of them. So yeah, just some top tips on new carers. So we've just gone through the assessment that you're all entitled to. And so to prepare for that assessment, just have a think about the outcomes that you want to achieve and what could really make a difference to help you in achieving those outcomes. Would it be, time to go and work? Would it be time to have a hobby? Would it be time to have, have a carer in so that you can cook? or can clean, you know, those sort of things. Have a think about what it is you really need to help you on a day-to-day basis. So this is the link again for those outcomes that we went through. It's here, and just prepare answers for those outcomes. So we did talk about health conditions. If you have a health condition yourself or an impairment, then ask your medical team to write a supporting letter for you for your carers assessment, because this will just show the local authority that, you know, they need to consider the fact that you also have a condition which means you may need some support, or they may need to make some reasonable adjustments for you or anything like that. It's just important to be transparent with them with everything, if you feel comfortable with that. You don't have to if you don't feel comfortable, but it's useful for them to know this. So if you have a carer's assessment and you're unhappy with the outcome, so if they just say to you, if they do the assessment and they say you're not entitled to anything, you know, you're doing fine, you can obviously, you have the right to say, no, you're wrong. And you've got a few options. You can make a formal complaint using the council's complaints procedure. You can ask for the appeals process, which is usually through the complaints team, but just ask them first so that you're aware. If going through the complaints process, which is usually 3 stages, if that doesn't work, then you can contact the Ombudsman. That's the local government and social care Ombudsman. And that's where they will investigate the issue and try and make recommendations if they're in your favour. You can also instruct a legal aid solicitor. This area of law is called community care. So if you're eligible for legal aid, then you can instruct a legal aid community care solicitor to make representations on your behalf. And the legal aid solicitor will rely heavily on what the law says, which is that a carer is entitled to an assessment. They are entitled to have all of those outcomes considered, and they'll go through it, and they'll put it in writing and put your submissions for you, and, you know, argue your case forward that you need support as a carer. One top tip is be aware of time limits to complain and to seek legal action. Complaints generally have to be made within 12 months of the date of the decision. And legally, if you want to issue judicial review proceedings, then you have to appeal within 3 months of the decision. So you have to act very quickly. So it's really important that you take advice as soon as possible if you're not happy with the decision of your carer's assessment. And that's something our helpline team are happy to advise you on what your options are. So just a bit on legal aid. So like I said, this area of law is called community care, and care assessments are within the scope of legal aid work with the legal aid agency. So every legal aid firm who have a legal aid contract in community care, they have to do work which is within the scope of that contract, and this is one of them. So if you're eligible for legal aid, it's always worth asking them to consider, you know, approaching a solicitor or caseworker to assist them. And judicial review, like I said, can also be considered. That's where there's a procedural error in law, and it's more of a last resort remedy, and it's always taken forward, you know, with advice from a barrister. So the barrister and solicitor will work together to get you some support and justice if needed. Judicial review cannot be taken where there's a disagreement of fact. That's where remedies such as like the complaints process and ombudsman can be used. So judicial review will be really useful if you've asked for a carer's assessment and you've been refused, because that is a procedural error in law. As a carer, you're entitled to an assessment under section 10, or if you're a young carer, then, you know, all those different sections. If you're living in Wales, section 24. So if you're point blank refused, then go to the solicitor and ask them to help you out. So this is just our contact details if you want to give us a call, or you can email us and follow us on social media for all those daily updates. There's always something happening on our social media pages, so do have a look at it.